Hello everyone, today I want to explain some of the questions from round 888 div 3. So let's start with the first problem. So one day Olet became curious about who he can have a conversation with on the escalator in the subway. There are a total of n passengers. The escalator has a total of m steps. All steps indexed from 1 to m, and each step has e times k. Olet's height is 8 centimeters. Two people with heights a and b can have a conversation on the escalator if they are standing on different steps and the height difference between them is equal to the height difference between the steps. So for example, if two people have heights 170 and 180 centimeters and m equals 10 and k equals 5, then they can stand on the steps numbered 7 and 5, where the height difference between the steps is equal to height difference between two people. So let me draw this for you. For example, there are two people. One with this one is 170 and this one is 180. So the difference here is this difference is 10 centimeters. So this guy needs 10 more centimeters to reach this guy's level. So how this can be done? So they can stand on numbers 7 and 5, and the difference between them is 2. So it's 2 times 5 is just 10. So this distance is just 2. So he uses 2 escalators, which is each of them is 5. So this 5 plus 5 gives 10, and so they can have a conversation. So given and h of size n and hi represents the height of each person, who are interested in how many people can have conversation individually. So you should count the number of this kind of conversations individually. So for example, it's also one more example. So as you can see here, heights are this, and Lot's height is 11. So difference is 3, and we have 3 different escalator levels. So we can only get 2, because for example for the first one, 11 minus 5 is 6. It can be formed because 3 times 2 is 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 is less than 3. So for 4 it cannot be formed because 11 minus 4 is 7, and it's not multiple of 3. For 14, 14 minus 11 is 3, which can be formed, and 18 from 18 minus 11 is 7. It cannot be formed. For this for this also, it's for example for 2, this 11 minus 2 is 9, and 9 divided by 3 is 3, and it's not less than 3. So answer is 2. And now we have to get some values, long, and n, m, n, m, k, and h. So we'll just input them. And new array, which we call as h. So let's go. Now we should iterate through this array auto to h. So we will just use one p variable, just giving names. We'll use absolute value of I minus h. So now we should check is it divisible by k or not, and if it's divisible, we should check whether this statement is true or not. It should be smaller than m, and so then answer plus plus. So then C out, answer, and line. So in this case you can see this is one thing is wrong. You can stop the video and find out what it is. No, I wasn't talking about this. So one thing in logics is wrong, so you have still time to find it out. So this is odds I. Now as you can see, it's this one value is 5 and here is 4. The reason is that if we are talking about 11, the person in 11 cannot have conversation with another 11. So because if both of them are in the same, they cannot sit on the same escalator level. So we should add these two. Difference should be bigger than 0. So this worked for example, and let me submit this code. So okay, for a problem, escalator conversations, let's submit it. So accept it. So let's move on to the other questions. So second question, for example, Parity thought you have an array of integers a of length n. You can apply the following operation to given array. Swap two elements a and aaj such that I is not equal to j, and ai and aj are either both or even or the odd numbers. So for example, in this case, and by the way, we should find whether it's possible to or not to sort this in non-decreasing order. So let me explain the first, this one. So we'll put here. So in the first operation we could change, so 1 is already sorted, so we could change the 2 and 10, and this would become, just change here, and this 10 here and 2 here, and then 7 and 3 we should just change them, and now it's sorted. So if that's the case, we should print yes, otherwise no. So now we should write code for this problem. We should delete the previous one. For this one, n would be integer. So we need some a long n for we input all the numbers, and then now we'll start. The logic is this: we should find whether we should first divide this into two parts, odds and then evens. For example, in this case it's 1 odd, yes, 1 odd, 3 and 7, and for evens it's 2 and 10. Now after this we should check. First is odds. By the way, we should sort both odds and evens with some STL library, and then we should check. We should iterate through this array, and then should find if it's odd. We will put one odd, and from the beginning we will put just with the order, and is the second one is even, so we will put the first even, and then this one is odd, so we will put second odd. So then we will move on, and at the end, if this is sorted, the answer would be yes, otherwise it should be no. Now we should implement this. Now let me get some two vectors for odds and evens. So now we will iterate through the A, and if I is divisible by 2, so we will add I to the evens because it's divisible by 2, otherwise we will add it to the odds. So after this, as I mentioned before, we have to sort both of the both arrays from evens. Let's begin. I think most all of you know this sorting, this way of sorting. So after this, we will sort odds also. So odds dot and odds dot and odds dot begin. So now we will need some both two integers, two pointers to show that where we are on the both int and even arrays vectors. So we'll set both of them to be 0, and now we need to keep answer at first it would be true, and anytime at the law of non-decreasing sorting violated, we'll just make it false and break the iteration and just print no. So now we should save the last value and we will set it to be 0, and then most important ones, iteration. So if I is divisible by 2, and we will check if last is bigger than evens with even I index, then rule is already violated, so we'll just put 0 and break this loop. Otherwise we will change the value of last to be evens in even I, and we add 1 to the even I. So else if it's odd, we will do the same thing with odds. So this would be odds, this would be odd I, so this would be also odds, this would be odd I, this would be also odd I. Now we are done, and we should check if answer. We will just see out yes, otherwise we will print no. So we will check with the sample test cases. Okay, this yes, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, no, yes, no. Okay, we will check, try to submit our code. Problem B, parity sort. So we are done. You can try to implement those A and B problems by yourself, and or see my tutorials and my code, and compare with yours. Goodbye.